Welcome back to GRE Bombs. Here we are with Bomb 13. In this case, we have a multiple choice question. Well, actually, you can actually choose as many possible options you can. We have a question that says Mike's average number of points per game in 5 games was 30. He had 5 games, an average of 30 points. In each of the first 4 games, the number of points scored ranged from 25 to 35 points inclusive. By inclusive, we mean that we actually do count the endpoints, 25 and 35. Which of the following could be the number of points Mike scored in his 5th game? Alright, we're going to take a look at this question. Let's see how we should approach it. Alright, let's go with the first sentence. It says that Mike's average number of points per game in 5 games was 30. Alright, so let's say, for example, the number of points he scored in the first game is x1. I'm just going to give it a variable, x1, the number of points he scored in game 1, plus the number of points he scored in game 2, and so forth, plus x3, plus x4, plus x5. That is the sum of the number of points he scored in each of the 5 games. I'm going to divide it by 5 because that's what the mean means, the average mean, or the average points per game is that I sum up the first 5 games and I divide it by the number of games, which was 5. And they tell us that the average was 30, so I'm going to set it equal to 30. Okay, now I'm going to multiply 5 on both sides to get rid of this division by 5, and I'm going to get, again, x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4 plus x5 equals 150. 30 times 5 is 150. Alright, so it equals 150. Okay, so let's go with the next piece of information. It says in each of the first 4 games, the number of points scored ranged from 25 to 35 points inclusive. That would be each of these ones, x1, x2, x3, x4. The maximum number of that Mike could have scored in each of the games is 35. The minimum number that he scored was 25. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna subtract this entire thing to the other side. I'm gonna be left with the number of points that Mike scored in x5 in the 5th game. It's gonna be 150 minus, I'm going to subtract literally this whole chunk here. So I'm just going to be subtracting it to the other side. x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4. And here's where the question comes. It's kind of like the logical thought process question of how to solve this question. Notice what happens. What's the lowest value that x5 could be? Well, the lowest number that x5 can be, which is the number of points that Mike scored in the 5th game, will be when this amount here, where x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4, which is the sum of the points he scored in total in the first 4 games, is its highest. Because when this sum is the highest number possible, it means that we're going to make this 150 smallest possible. So that tells us that the lowest number that x5 can be is when each of these is the highest possible value. And what is the possible highest value for x1, x2, x3, and x4? Well, it's 35. That's the highest amount of points that he could have scored in each of these games. So we're going to take that extreme case. We're going to let x1 be 35, x2 be 35, x3 be 35, x4 be 35, so that the sum is the largest number possible. We subtract it from 150, and we get the lowest possible value that x5 can take. So we're going to do that here on the side. We're going to say, well, x5, in the lowest possible value, it's going to be 150 minus, I'm going to choose the highest possible number of points that Mike could have scored in each of the 4 games, which is 35. So we add it. We have 150 minus, alright, so adding 35 plus 35 is 70. And then here these two also make up 70. So we have 70 plus 70, we have 140. Alright, and x5 in that case we'll have x5 equals 10. 150 minus 140 is 10. Again, that's the lowest possible value that he could have scored in the 5th game. Alright, so looking at the answer choices, I see that he could not have scored 9 points because the lowest possible value in the fifth game would be 10. So we know that so far these are the possible values. We discarded 9. Now let's take the opposite approach. Let's find out when will x5 be its highest possible value. The highest possible value that x5 could be is when this sum here it's lowest, because then we're subtracting the smallest possible number from 150 and therefore getting the largest possible value of x5. And what is the smallest possible number that x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4 could be? Well, it's when in each of these games Mike scored the lowest possible value of points, which is 25. So instead of choosing 35 like we did here for the highest possible number of points, I'm going to choose 25. So we're going to have x5 in this case will equal 150 minus 25 plus 25 plus 25 plus 25. Alright, so we get 150 minus, adding 25 with itself 4 times equals 100. And therefore we get 150 minus 100 is 50. And x5 equals 150. That's the highest possible value that Mike could have scored in the fifth game. So therefore we go to the answer choices and we see, look, it cannot be 60 because that's way more than the highest possible value that Mike could have scored in the fifth game. It cannot be 55 either. The only ones that satisfy the condition that x5 is greater than or equal to 10 and less than or equal to 50 are the answer choices from B to E. All of these fall in between these two restrictions. The smallest possible value that x5 could be is 10. The highest possible value it could be at 50. So our answer choices are B, C, D, and E. Again, as a recap of how we solved this question, when we set up, first of all, our average based on the first information given, we multiply 5 to the other side. We got that the sum of the first 5 games is 150. We isolated the fifth game because that was the game that we were interested on. And then the next approach was taking the two extreme cases. The first extreme case was looking at what is the smallest possible value that Mike could have scored in the fifth game, which happens when in each of the first 4 games Mike scores the maximum number of points. And then the other extreme case is when Mike scores the most number of points in the fifth game, which happens when Mike scores the least possible number of points in the first 4 games, which is 25. We found those two values, 10 and 50, and we know that all of the possible values of the fifth game, have to be in between 10 and 50. And then we chose the answer choices that satisfy that condition that we found. And that's it. Alright, so remember guys, subscribe, like this video. Again, comment below some questions that you guys would like me to solve, and I'll post some videos about it. I'll see you guys in the next bomb. That would be bomb 14. Alright, take it easy. Bye.